Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could ask members of council to take their seats, and members of the public, if anyone would like to speak to any item on the agenda, if you could fill out a form just under the television screen. Alors, si vous avez de parler un sujet à la comité, s'il vous plaît, signez une forme donnée à la greffier, and we'd be happy to hear from you. So, declarations of interest, déclaration d'intérêt. None. Confirmation of minutes, adoption de procès verbaux le 3 mai 2016. Adopté, carried. We have a motion from Councillor El Shantiri with respect to the India delegation to allow us to hear Sad Bashir's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're at the Team Ottawa Trade Mission to India 2016 as listed under information previously distributed on today's Finance Economic Development Committee FEDCO agenda. Therefore, be it resolved that FEDCO lift the above note item and add it to today's agenda pursuant to Section 89, Sub 3 of the Procedures Bylaw, being Bylaw number 2014-441.
Carried. Carried. Thank you. Municipal Clerk, 2015 Year-End MFIPA Report, Summary, Rapport de fin de l'année de l'application de l'MVIPA sommaire 2015. Received. Appointment to the Glebe Business Improvement Area, nomination de conseil de gestion de la zone d'amélioration commerciale de Glebe, that we appoint Joshua Thatcher to the Glebe BIA. Carried. Okay. Status update, Finance and Economic Development Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending 27th May 2016. Rapport de situation, demande de renseignement et motion du Comité des finances et de développement économique pour la période de le 27 mai 2016. Received. City Treasurer and Finance, capital adjustments and closing of projects, city tax and rates supported, ajustement de budget. We have two technical amendments that Councillor El Shantiri will move.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, whereas staff may identify errors in document 1 and 3 of the reports titled Capital Adjustment and Closing of Projects, City Tax and Rates Supported, and there's the number, listed on item 4, the Finance and Economic Development Committee Agenda 18. Therefore, be it resolved that documents 1 and 3 of the report titled Capital Adjustment and Closing of Project City Tax and Rates Supported be replaced with the revised document as attached below. And I think we all have it as an attached with us.
So this was just numbers that were left off two documents that Councillor El Shantiri. So on the technical amendments, carried. So on the report, Councillor Chernishenko. Sure. Who is going to speak to that?
Should we?
All right. Does anyone else want to speak on this item?
I'd just like to hear the explanations.
Yeah, no, we can do that now. So, Treasurer?
I'll actually ask Marco Manconi to come down, the project manager for that, for the Urban Park project, to explain the cost overruns.
Welcome, Mr. Manconi.
Yeah, my questions would simply be to have a better understanding of what accounts for the cost overrun and then how that's going to be compensated. Or
I can ask Marion to speak about how it would be corrected, but in terms of some of the cost overruns, there are multiple components that make up the urban park. It was spread amongst the horticulture building, move and renovation, the park itself, the public realm, the parking garage component attributed to the park, and some site servicing. A significant portion, about half of the cost overrun, is associated with the work of the horticulture building. So we moved this 100-year-old structure, put it in its place in order to bring it up to current codes. We had to do some structural modifications, so that's about half of the actual cost overruns there. And the rest are just spread amongst the whole series of issues that needed to be taken care of before we can open up the park to make sure that it was safe for 24,000 people showing up that first July. So it was nothing really. It was a series of small issues amongst everything that we did that the park funded. So the public realm needed a bit of extra work. The park needed some extra work in order to be ready. So a general characterization would be the horticulture building, and then with the rest of the site in order to be ready for the grand opening.
And I suppose this might be better addressed by Ms. Simmerlich. Was there not some sort of contingency fund for such cost overruns? Clearly this must have gone beyond whatever that was there, and then further how we are going to address this.
Through the chair, there was a contingency, and with the original budget for the park was set well in advance of the work taking place. So the contingencies were used up, and these cost overruns went over and above some of those contingencies.
Just to speak to how the cost overrun is being funded, we were consistent with how the project was funded as a whole. A large part of that came from your citywide cash in lieu of parkland funding, and a portion of it is considered growth because it actually is an increase in the park area in the city, because you turn parking lot into park, and so we were able to use development charges. So it was a combination of a contribution from the cash in lieu of parklands, the citywide portion, and the development charges parkland account.
So if I understand correctly, there is no additional debt now that we have to find some way in this year's budget to cover. Yeah.
No, this is because this is a capital project, it actually doesn't even affect your 2016 operating budget. It's being funded from reserves and the development charge accounts, so it has no impact on 2016. It's just simply how we deal with projects when they're almost ready to close. We have to fund any deficits, and we keep it consistent with how the project was actually funded to begin with. So we did not add any more debt onto this project.
Just to put this in perspective, I think the overall report shows we're returning $17.6 million to reserve funds, and about $4 million of that is that we don't have to issue debt. So it's actually a very good report on the positive side. Councillor Deans?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to understand in terms of process how we do that, because, I mean, we wouldn't have any choice now the money's spent to take the money out of reserves to cover this expense, but I just can't imagine in my ward if we overspent that much on a park that we wouldn't have to come back and get some authority before we did that. So is there no way, like, isn't there a process whereby we have to come back and ask for more money if we're into the millions of dollars in cost overruns?
Due to the nature of the expenditures and when they happened, and the fact that they had to be done in such a short period of time in order for the park opening, to meet the park opening deadline, there was basically we allowed the project to run over, knowing that we would be coming back and requesting additional funds. Most times we allow we don't allow the projects to go over, but there's sufficient contingency in there. As Mr. Manconi indicated, we established the costs for this project years before it was done, and basically I think it was almost a Class D estimate. When we actually got to the development of the park and the installation of all of those elements, there were additional items that came up that needed to be addressed and addressed quickly. So we allowed it to go over, knowing that we would be coming back at any point in time to get council to approve additional funds. We started reporting on this actually very shortly after it happened. We've been reporting that there's been a deficit in here for almost a year or more, but we were waiting for all the final costs to come in before we actually made the transfer and increased the authority on the budget.
So just from a process perspective, did the staff have the delegated authority to allow this kind of cost overrun without coming back and asking for authority from council? I'm just asking if they have that much delegated authority to allow them to do that without coming back to council.
It depends on the nature of the expenditure and the timing of it? Generally, the answer is no. If you are awarding, if at contract time it comes in and it's above, the contract is above the budget, then you have to go back to council and ask for additional authority, because there's still time to do it. The work hasn't started. But when you're coming up to opening date, and there are a number of items, some of them safety related, that need to be addressed, we have special circumstances under the purchasing bylaw, which allows staff to go ahead and expend the money that's needed to address the safety issue. And so that was the case in this one, that they used basically the special circumstances provision in the purchasing bylaw, which gives them some authority, but they have to report back to council, which is what we did in terms of reporting the deficit, and then we have to come back and we have to actually address the deficit and fill it in.
So how much of that $3.7 million was related to a safety issue?
I don't have it specifically broken down that way, Chair. A lot of these costs, it wasn't like at the 11th hour we got a bill for an extra $3 million. So some of this happened along the way in terms of using up some of our contingencies. And then as we got a few months out and we were reporting through quarterly memos through to Mayor and Council, we then started to do some of these final tallies, and we were tracking to this overage. And we worked with Finance to make sure that we had the delegated authority to do so. But I don't have it broken down in terms of how much was safety related.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Blais.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Similik, if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, at some point a couple years into the construction, we thought there were going to be overruns, and so we took $7-8 million out of the citywide cash and lieu fund to cover those additional costs. Is my memory correct on that?
No, that's not quite correct. We funded this project with about $7 or $8 million cash in lieu from the very beginning. So we didn't increase when the budget was set at $42 million from day one.
Yeah.
It was just where it was funded from. So we used, because this is truly a citywide park, we used the citywide cash in lieu of Parkland as one of the sources.
And so on page 7, is that a returning of $2.9 million to the citywide account? Is that what that said?
That is a negative, so there is a drawdown of $2.9 million from the citywide cash in lieu Parkland account.
In addition to the 7 or 8 that we authorized at the beginning?
That was taken out back in 2013 or 14, whenever this was originally approved. That $7 million went from citywide cash in lieu Parkland, and now we are transferring a net of $2.9 million out.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? So on the report, as amended, carried. Next item is financing lease agreements 2015, convention de crédit bail 2015, that Council received this report on outstanding lease financial arrangements as of 31st of December 2015. Received. Item 6, 2015 Investment and Endowment Fund Report, rapport sur les fonds d'investissement et de dotation de 2015. Received and approved. Received and approved. Item 7, proposed 2017 budget timeline and consultation process proposé pour le budget 2017 et les consultations. Hold. Well, we might as well deal with it now. So go ahead, Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going through I just want some clarification because last year was sort of the first year we went with a modified version. So in terms of the council-led consultations, what sort of staff support is going to be available for councillors? Will we be able to have somebody from finance, for example, at the presentations to answer the more technical questions, that sort of thing?
Similar to last year, our priority will be given to council-led consultations that are a multi-ward, so that will be our number one priority, but we will look at all the requests that come in, and if there are staff available, we will proceed to make that available to the councillors.
So last year, for example, myself, Councillor Harder, Councillor Taylor, and Councillor Shirelli, so that would be the sort of thing the staff would come out to and assist with? That
would receive the priority from our perspective in terms of ensuring that there is staff at that meeting.
Okay. And are there any fixed times when we need to get our ask in, if you will? Like, when does staff need to hear from us in terms of what dates we're looking at, and so that there's proper preparation time, that sort of thing?
My sense is, from the Treasurer's point of view, the sooner you have a date, the better, and the more likely you're going to be able to get the date that works for you and your 3 colleagues. So if you can pick a date, because then we have the logistics of booking the facility and so on. So I think, Ms. Similek, you're open to entertaining dates any time after this gets approved at Council?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We were actually planning on sending a memo to all the members of Council to encourage them to start planning for their consultation and letting us know, and it would be useful to us if before the end of July we could have a list and start organizing ourselves with respect to the consultation as well.
Okay, and a follow-up question is, last year there was a budget attached to it as well. Each councillor got a certain amount of money that they could pool together for rental of space or what have you. Is that also going to happen this year? And,
yes.
And what's the dollar amount we're working with?
Same amount as last year.
So $250 a councillor, I think it was?
I believe so.
Okay.
And you can pool it.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Deans?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just a couple of things. I think our budget process is imperfect, and I think we have transparency issues because a lot of what we do is done behind the scenes where the public aren't part of it and the public don't hear about it. The problem I have with the budget consultation is we're caught in this trap between doing it too late or too soon. We used to do it after the budget was tabled. That seemed too late because a lot of decisions had already been made to formulate that budget. Last year we did it before the budget was tabled. I thought that was too soon because we didn't have any context to go out and consult. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do think it's imperfect how we do it. It almost feels like we should do 2, one before and one after, because then we would really hear from the public. And I know they can come to the committees, but it is piecemeal as well. Maybe we should be hearing delegations at Committee of the Whole once the whole budget has been tabled. Jan's going to have a heart attack. But I think in terms of transparency, that would be better. I would also say, though, that I'm happy to see the budget challenge back. I think this is an improvement to have that budget challenge, and I know it's the chairs and vice chairs, so I mean, I'd love to participate in all the budget challenges and all of them to have a better understanding of that level of the budget. But I do think that this is an improvement over last year, but I still think transparency is our key challenge, and there's more that we should do to get this right.
I think maybe, Ms. Similek, if you could also explain the new device that we're using so members of the public can put together their own budget. This was a suggestion by Councillor Tierney, if you may recall, that he picked up at FCM. Maybe you can just explain that's something different that we'll be offering the public so they can really walk a mile in our shoes to see the choices that have to be made and the consequences of those choices.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, but I did actually want to suggest to Councillor Deans that there's no limit on the amount of consultation councillors can do. If you want to do 2 consultations, you are able to do that. We are only committing as staff to attend the first one because it's done before the budget is tabled. But you certainly are capable or able to go out and do more consultation if you want to after the budget is tabled, but we do have committee where the members of the public can come as well. So with respect to the electronic tools that we're making available, there is a small video that's up actually on the city website right now which talks about the budget and the difference between capital and operating. It's just a small doodle video. But we're also putting up there, launching it in, I think at the end of August, a budget calculator, which has all of the services. If you look on the back of your tax bill, you'll see we have your individual contribution of taxes for each of the various services. So this tool has the ability for you to say, this is my assessment, and it'll bring up what your taxes are, and then it has each one of those services, and you can say whether you want to spend more or you want to spend less, and it tells you what the impact of that is in terms of an increase or a decrease in the total taxation. So it gives you your tax numbers by service and allows you to adjust those as you see fit. And at the end of it, you can submit it to the city. Well, now this is only on a trial basis right now, but we will be running the results of that to see what the public had to say, where they were looking to increase how much we spend on a service, where they thought we could decrease service levels and decrease spending. And we will attach that, provide that to councillors as part of the budget so that you can see what were the results of it. Because it's just a pilot at this point in time, it actually isn't going to be one of the things that feeds into the actual crafting of the budget, but it is a tool to help the public understand the difficulties in dealing with so many different levels, different services, and the demands on all of them, and what changes make changes in the budget, the impact it makes on the overall taxation for you as an individual.
All right. Councillor Harder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember last year when a lot of our brand new councillors were engaged in thinking about how they could do their very best to get more people to come out and participate in that. And I know that, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, but it was not a productive meeting that we had in the PN on a Saturday in October. We tried to do, in September, we tried to do something very different, but really, you know, if we had stuck with the former format that we had, it was a much better participation. The other thing that we found, I think, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. They had nothing to really, it's not a play on Jody Middick or anything with the fish business, but I thought you were looking at me for that. Were you? Oh. Just a metaphor. However, but it was like that. It was like we were trying to get people to say stuff that they weren't really thinking about, and they had nothing to base it on. So I'm thinking that unless there's something, I think that the new tool that Councillor Tierney suggested is fabulous, and I think that it will give us an opportunity to reach people differently. But I really think that we've got to think about what success has looked like on budget consultation at a larger event over the years, and which one serves the public best.
Good point. Thank you. So on the report as presented, carried. Item 8 is Municipal Capital Facility Designation Agreement for the Innovation Center at Bayview Yards. We have a staff presentation. I'll ask Saad Bashir, I believe it's Saad doing the presentation, to come forward. We can actually, since while he's getting ready, is there anything anyone wants to discuss with respect to reimbursement of funds on Riverside South Corridor? I want to thank Councillor Harder. I know she did a lot of heavy lifting on this to get this report and these dollars to the city, so thank you for that. On item 9, carried. Item 10, Real Estate Partnership and Development Office, Delegation of Authority, Acquisition and Sale of Land and Property, January 1st to March 30th, 2016. Received. Declaration of Surplus Property, 1708 John Quinn Road, Déclaration de Propriétaire 170 Chemin John Quinn in Osgood. Carried. Application for approval to expropriate lands for the combined sewer storage tunnel at Séraphin-Marien Private and Confederation Line at 32 Elgin. Carried. And then we have the Team Ottawa India mission. So we'll, Mr. Bashir, just if I can give an opening comment, I'd encourage members, if you haven't been by the work that they're doing at the Innovation Center, it's absolutely spectacular. The windows are in, the red brick is exposed. This is going to be a real game changer for the City of Ottawa, and it's been a great partnership with both the private sector, Invest Ottawa, the city, the province, and it's a very exciting project that's going to open by the end of this year. And I think I would urge you, the staff have sent around a note asking if people would like to go on a tour, the construction site, but I would urge you, if you can, once we set the date for the opening, please try to come out to the opening, because you are going to be very impressed with the kind of ingenuity, innovation, entrepreneurship spirit at this center. We're already at a space problem, which is a good problem to have, that so many people want to be in as part of the Innovation Center. It's quite exciting. So Sad and his team have been doing a lot of work on this project, and this is to turn this center into a municipal capital facility designation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, everybody. Just on the Mayor's point about having an opportunity to see the Innovation Centre up close, on June 15th, we have a funding announcement taking place at La Roche Park, right across from the Innovation Centre, and this morning I was able to forward you an invitation on behalf of the Board of Directors, so that would be one opportunity as well. I'm very excited with my colleague Hugh to give you a brief update on the project. We have a brief outline in front of you, quick background, consultation done to date, an overview of the facility, the programming, the types of tenants that we are expecting to be at the Innovation Centre, a summary of the financials, and some next steps. It all started back in 2013 when staff at the province and the city were able to negotiate a $15 million funding agreement that had the caveat of the city matching that $15 million. Throughout 2013, we were engaged in a number of consultations with a number of folks, individuals who are entrepreneurs, as well as organizations who provide service to entrepreneurs. We also took part in a best practice study in which we spoke with a number of award-winning incubators around the world and asked them what was their secret sauce, and we were able to collect all of that information. As a result of that, a location was selected, and as a result of that, Council approved the appointment of a not-for-profit entity with an initial board of directors. The location, as all of you know, is at the junction of the O train and the future LRT. And really in the consultation there were three overwhelming reasons to pick this space. One was the ability for the city to provide this space for in-kind. The access to public transit was something that the consultations said to us was key, as well as positioning the location of the Innovation Centre in a place that was accessible by all the post-secondary institutions, and that was another reason why 7 Bayview Road was such an ideal location. In 2014, we engaged in a comprehensive business case development exercise. We contracted some external experts to help us with that. Some additional board of directors were recruited for the not-for-profit board, as well as several subcommittees were struck. And one of the chairs of the leasing subcommittee, Ian Fraser, who is actually a local business person from that area, is also in the room, who has joined us today. We had a couple of open houses. One of them especially I remember was -30, -35, and we had in both March and April hundreds of people who showed up, both from the community, from the local community, as well as the broader entrepreneurial community, to check out what the project was all about. Also in 2014, we submitted a funding application for FedDev. In 2015, the RFP was issued for the design-build contract. Local contractors were selected. A community open house took place in October, also well attended. As well as in 2016, we were able to hire the very first full-time staff person for the Innovation Centre. Up until that point, all the secretariat and staffing support was being provided by Economic Development at the city. And Richard Quigley, who's the interim managing director, is also in the room sitting with us. We, in 2016, have been engaged in securing tenant agreements, updated communication material, and of course the construction is ongoing. In terms of consultation, this project has been excessive in terms of consultation. We have gone to almost anybody and everybody, and we have gone to people that traditionally people in this business wouldn't go to. We've gone to our competitors. We've gone to the CEOs of Communitech and Mars and asked them, how can you help us make this innovation center better? And all of that information has been collected and is being applied to the project as we move forward.
Thank you, Sad, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to speak a bit about the facility itself. It's a purpose-built building to be a community innovation center. As Sad mentioned earlier, it's an existing city building from 1941, and it's being redesigned into being the innovation center for the city of Ottawa. And so we have a heritage-designated building that's going to be a green building. There are sustainable features, and we're targeting our LEED Gold certification. I'm going to jump to the schematic of the building. It's a little bit confusing, but it shows the building floor by floor, starting with the basement. Sorry, I'm on the front side. Starting on the base. Oh, sorry. There we go. Starting on the basement level, showing the ground floor. So this is really the footprint of the Innovation Center, and at the second level as well. So in total, it's about a 55,000 square foot building. And here's the landscape plan. So you can really see the outline of this building. And a couple of features that I want to highlight that will be present here is the maker's space. So it's located on the first floor to the back. It's going to have advanced manufacturing tools and equipment like 3D printers, laser printing, and it's going to be available to entrepreneurs to be able to turn their ideas into physical concepts and prototype and test their technology on site. As well, there's going to be a digital media lab. There'll be advanced tools for audio and video production that will be done on site. There'll be a green screen wall to do production. On the next slide, there's some interior design renderings to see what the Innovation Center is going to look like from the inside. On the top here is the grand stairwell. It's going to be the center of the building. On the ground floor will be the concierge. This will be your first point of contact when you come into the building. It'll direct you where you can go and all the services that are available. Just above the stairwell is the auditorium. It fits about 300 people, so in terms of the type of events that can be held here, it'll be able to hold a large capacity. So just going back to the schematic here, this is where the auditorium is located, and this is the grand stairwell and the reception area. As well, there's going to be a cafe in the Innovation Center, so a coffee shop where people can drop in, visit the services available here. If you go back to the schematic, it's located purposely in the center part of the building, so people can grab a coffee, they'll cross paths with people that work in the building. In terms of the number of people who will be working from here, it's about 250 people. And just to show some other visuals of the site, this is an example of the incubation space. So this area is where entrepreneurs will be able to drop in, be present on a short-term basis. As well, there's business services available on site, including a training room that fits 40 participants. There's 18 meeting rooms of various sizes. And the concept of the interior plan was to make sure that it was an open concept, that it's flexible. So a lot of spaces, there aren't actual fixed walls, but flexible partitions where you can create multiple rooms and spaces. In terms of the tenant mix at the Innovation Center, we're really looking to have a mix of programming agencies, post-secondary institutions, social innovation organizations. The logos that you see there are stakeholders in the entrepreneur ecosystem. They've been involved in the consultation process in the early days of the Innovation Center. Invest Ottawa will be relocating here. It will be an anchor tenant of the Innovation Center. The post-secondary, such as Carleton, University of Ottawa, La Cité, Algonquin, will have a presence in this building. These are the organizations that the Innovation Center will be working with to have at the building. In terms of the funding contributions to date, is a financial snapshot of what's been contributed to the Innovation Center. As Sad mentioned earlier, from the province of Ontario, the Innovation Center received $15 million that is specific to the renovation and construction of the building. The city has committed to match these funds, and to date has provided $9.9 million, which a large portion is through the city building and land at a value of $8 million. They have leased this site to the Innovation Center for its long-term use. Other sources the city has provided is a site preparation, site remediation. This is a brownfield site, as well as professional services in the business development of this facility. From the federal government, there is an active application with FedDev, which is the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, and we're expecting to hear news of this very soon. And then I'll pass it back to Sad in terms of next steps on the project.
Thanks, you. So, of course, our number one goal remains to open on time and to be within the budget envelope. And everything so far is looking that we are going to meet those targets. The tenant agreements are in full swing. Our aim is that on day one of the opening, every square footage, every cubicle, every office is occupied by one of these agencies that we talked about. Of course, we're looking for an MCF designation through this report. And we're also looking to see how can we leverage Invest Ottawa's breadth of experience and their depth of experience in running an incubation center for the last few years at 80 Aberdeen Street. And so there's a lot of alignment opportunities there that we're exploring. And of course, engaging corporate partners remains another key item for us. This is the end of the presentation, and before I end it, I just want to acknowledge two people that have been behind the scenes working really hard on this project. One of them is the CEO and president of Invest Ottawa, Bruce Lazenby, who's behind us, and he's the instigator and many times the disturber when it comes to reminding the province that they have to give us some of this funding, as well as my colleague Ian Scott, who has really been a full-time staff person on this for the last couple of years and still is working behind the scenes on this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you. Questions? So one of the things I think that we should always remind ourselves that the center, the Innovation Center, is going to be at the junction of the LRT and the O train, which is going to connect Ottawa U, Carleton, Algonquin, and ultimately, as a result of the provincial announcement, La Cité's Centre des Métiers in Orleans, Cumberland. So we'll have all four post-secondary institutions able to access the Innovation Center by rail, which is going to, I think, add to the positive nature of the center. So we have a recommendation for the designation as a municipal capital facility. Carried, and congratulations, Sad, and Bruce Lazenby is with us here, and many others who worked on it. Ian, who's on the board, local business person in the Mechanicsville area. Thank you all very much for coming. Next, I think, Sad, you're back up again. We have the Team Ottawa Trade Mission to India. Mr. Bashir thought it would be interesting, since it's our first mission to India, to give an overview as to progress that we made with respect to the visits to Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. And Mr. Bashir has a slide deck. This is an information item, but he's happy to take any questions. So I think we have a
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Presentation here.
And I'm actually going to straight away hand it over to a colleague, Krista Curling, who actually was the brains behind this trade mission along with Invest Ottawa. And I'll pitch in as needed, but Krista, take it away.
Thanks very much, Saad, and good morning, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. So from the 17th to April 22nd of this year, Mayor Watson led a trade delegation to India. And as Saad had indicated, this was really a joint effort between Economic Development and Innovation and Invest Ottawa. Before I move on, I'd just like to take a quick moment to acknowledge the private sector sponsors that are on this slide. Their support and leadership were instrumental in making this mission a reality. This morning I'll be going over just a few topics. So why India, the purpose of the trade mission, the delegates that traveled with us, the destination cities and our itinerary, key accomplishments achieved during the mission, and next steps. So why India? So 2013 and 2015 saw Mayor Watson lead 2 trade delegations to China, and this made a lot of sense, not only because of the business opportunities that abound in China, but also from a municipal policy context. So the City of Ottawa has a sister city a relationship with Beijing. So why India, and why now? Really, the rationale for this mission can be looked at in terms of 4 themes. So the first is India's strong economic potential. India has boasted very strong economic growth rates over the past 2 years and has the potential to be the 3rd largest economy by the next decade. Some have dubbed that India will be to the 2020s what China was to the early 2000s. India is also a target market for other levels of government. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau listed India as one of only 2 countries in his ministerial mandate letter to Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland, and Premier Kathleen Wynne also led a trade delegation to India in January of this year. So not only do we want to build on the momentum generated by upper levels of government, but we also wanted to leverage the momentum and the experience of our local and very successful Indo-Canadian business community. And the 4th reason is really that it's timely. Both Economic Development and Invest Ottawa knew from our experience in hosting Indian companies and post-secondary institutions in the past that there was a great deal of interest in what Ottawa had to offer, and that Ottawa companies and organizations basically have what India currently needs. We also understood that in order to be successful in India, we needed to be very focused, otherwise we would get lost. So this slide illustrates our GDP in context of our Canadian municipal counterparts across the country, but also in the context of India. So just illustrating again that point that if we wanted to be successful in this vast market, we needed to be very strategic and focused with this mission. We also understood that in order to be successful in India, we needed to strike partnerships with those who have a significant amount of experience and current experience on the ground doing business in India. So these are some of the partners that we enlisted to help us for this project. So the Canadian High Commission to India, and in particular the Trade Commissioner Service, the Indian High Commission to Canada, Global Affairs Canada, the Ontario International New Delhi Trade and Investment Office, the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, and the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Our purpose of the mission throughout the week was to promote Canada's capital city as a leading centre of innovation, to attract investment not only for the Ottawa companies that were travelling with us, but also to attract investment in opportunities in training and research for our post-secondary institutions, and to encourage tourism in advance of the 2017 celebrations next year. Mayor Watson led a delegation of 35 business leaders representing multiple sectors, so economic development, education. We were pleased to have 3 of our local post-secondaries traveling with us, so Algonquin College, Carleton University, and the University of Ottawa. We had delegates representing the film production industry, clean technology, e-learning solutions, wireless and telecommunications, medical devices, defense products, and tourism. The mission over the course of 6 days saw us visiting 3 cities. We began in New Delhi, which is the seat of Indian government and is home to the embassies and high commissions. It was also the most northern city that we visited and was a strategic location, especially for our education sector delegates, because many of the premier educational institutes in India are located in northern India. We then moved to Mumbai, which is the business center of India and also home to the Bollywood film industry. And our 3rd and final destination was Bangalore, and it's the IT and startup capital of India. And its private sector most closely matches our own private sector with a high focus of high technology companies. We had a very aggressive agenda for our delegates. We wanted them to really reap the benefits and the rewards of coming with us and spending time with us away from their busy day-to-day businesses. So in each destination city, we held major events and receptions so that delegates could meet with government officials, partners, and decision makers. We held formal B2B, so business-to-business meetings planned in coordination with the Trade Commissioner Service and the local chambers of commerce in India. We did site visits to sector-relevant companies and organizations, and we also had a series of announcement ceremonies by Ottawa companies to showcase the business opportunities that exist in India. Mayor Watson also led a series of high-potential meetings with Indian decision-makers, the Chief Minister of Delhi, the 3 Delhi mayors, the Mayor of Bangalore, the Minister for Bangalore Development, and the Principal Secretary for IT, Science and Technology with the Government of Karnataka, which is the state government where Bangalore is located. Over the course of the week, approximately 12 memoranda of understanding and strategic partnerships were struck with a total value of over $80 million. More than 160 formal B2B meetings took place, and delegates had the opportunity to meet with more than 70 representatives from India's technical colleges and universities. We continue to receive very positive feedback from the delegates that came with us. We've included in this presentation 2 quotes, one from Kevin Loisel, the President and CEO of Clear Forward Water Systems, which is a clean technology company, as well as Michael Crockett, the President and CEO of Ottawa Tourism. Our delegates' feedback is also helping us to inform our next steps. So we understand that India is a country that requires a fair amount of relationship building in order to be successful. So economic development and innovation will continue to engage our government partners. Invest Ottawa is taking the lead in terms of following up on private sector leads. We will both be working with our post-secondary institutions to help them realize their goals and opportunities in working with India, and we will be planning for 2017 and beyond. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Mayor, I wanted to include a video for all the bloopers that happen in India, but my colleague said it wouldn't be a good idea.
I want to thank Bruce Lazenby's in the front row here. He and his team worked very closely with SAD and Angela and the whole team, and did a great job putting the whole program together, because as you can imagine, traveling 3 cities within 5.5 days is pretty challenging from a logistics point of view, and they did a great job. So thank you, Krista, for all of your logistical work on the ground as well. Any questions to Krista or SAD? Not sure. Okay, so thank you very much. We have a motion from Councillor Harder that we'd have to waive the rules of procedure to consider the motion because it needs to be forwarded to Council with respect to IT matters. So on the waiving of the rules of procedure, carried. Councillor Harder, if you'd like to introduce the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is a motion that I'll just read the first whereas. Whereas Hydro Ottawa will be investing in the installation of fibre over the next 3 years and exploring opportunities to monetize this investment. And you'll hear more about that at the AGM of Hydro Ottawa on June 22nd at Council. And where it makes sense for the city to align and build on Hydro Ottawa's investment, and not knowing really where its wisest choices are and where they begin and where they end. But we do know that there are virtually every board, whether it's police or it's a library for sure, certainly community protective services, transit, planning, transportation, all of those areas of the city that interest is being shown and opportunity is there. In speaking with the mayor and the city manager, and also with Hydro Ottawa's Bryce Conrad, it became evident that we needed to have a plan that was looked at by staff, that staff take the time to review, so we'd have the direction. And because it's so multifaceted and over so many departments and boards, it made sense that whereas the Finance and Economic Development Committee would provide effective governance for this initiative in the same manner that they did, for example, and do with the procurement and construction of the city's light rail transit projects, that the City Council recommend the Finance and Economic Development Committee be assigned governance over smart city initiatives, and that staff be directed to come back to this committee when they're ready, when they have the report, and Council with a report on a vision and a roadmap for Ottawa to become a smart city, which builds on the work and investment being made by Hydro Ottawa. And that's it in a nutshell.
So, as you know, Councillor Harder is one of our representatives on Hydro, and I think the goal is to try to create a citywide overarching responsibility as opposed to a silo approach. Councillor Deans?
Thank you. Just want to be clear, though, if this committee has carriage of it from a governance perspective, any decisions that we were to take would still rise to Council, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments or questions? So on the motion, carried. Notices of motion for consideration at subsequent meetings. Are there any notices of motions? Any written inquiries? Other business? Adjournment? Motion? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, information item, we did have the economic development update for May 2016 as an information item that was circulated with the agenda. Motion to adjourn? Carried. Next meeting, the 5th of July. La prochaine réunion, le 5 juillet 2016. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Merci.